Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 5. So, we're going to do a few housekeeping things, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the teaching standards. So, the first thing that we're going to talk about is I'm going to send you a Google form either later today or tomorrow. It'll take you, it's going to have one question, yes or no. The question is going to be, can we start class at 7:10? Not this Thursday, but next Thursday. And the reason behind that is because we have so much to cover. I want to get going as quickly as we can. For those that are in library information retrieval, it's kind of a no-brainer for you. You're kind of already there at 4:30, so you just roll with me from one room to the next. So it'll be easy for you guys. But for those who come on campus specifically for school foundations of library, then it may get a little wonkier for you. If for any reason you cannot make it by 7:10, that's fine. You can mark no, but this is kind of how this will roll out. All it takes is one person to say no, and then then we'll abide by what it says in the syllabus and on this UCO website as far as the class schedule goes. We will, however, have to stay until about 9:45. If we start at 7:10, I'm hoping to be done by 9:15, 9:30. If we start at 7:20-ish, then it's going to be 9:45, 9:40 maybe. So that's kind of why I'd like to get started a little earlier so we can get out. I know from personal experience this semester what it's like to start a class at 7:20 and go till 10:15. I have a class like that in Stillwater. It's a 16-week class. We meet every week. Where you guys are doing this once a month. I'm doing it every Tuesday. That's why most Tuesdays I'm like, if you email me, you're probably not going to get a response because I also have my dissertation committee meetings that day. I pretty much spend my whole day in Stillwater from about 8 o'clock a.m. until about 10:15 at night. So I know what it's like to get home late. I usually get home around midnight. And then although I don't obviously get up and go teach like you guys do, but I have to be up and be on campus sometimes between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning. So for meetings and all kinds of fun. So I understand what that's like. Tuesday and Wednesday for me right now are not a lot of fun. So I sympathize with those who have a longer drive than what I do. But it's still, if you cannot make it to class by 7:10 and you mark no, that's fine. Nobody will know. I won't know. Nobody will know who you are. So, but just kind of keep that all in mind. Okay. All right. Now, teaching standards are the topic for this week. The 3 teaching standards that control kind of what we do are AASL, which is the American Association of School Librarians, and ISTE, which is the technology side of it. Those 2 things, when you look at the state standards, that's kind of what they use, ISTE and ASL, for the state standards. So when you cite those this week, cite them as a web page. Cite them, and don't forget you need to add the word retrieved. And retrieved in this case is just going to be whatever day it is, you click on it, look at it, read it, get the information that you need for the discussion post, and move on. Okay? So that's it for as far as the APA full citation goes. Let's see. The AASL standards will be changing in November. So what you read right now, do not commit to memory. I tried to avoid including it, but it's a part of the teaching standards, and the teaching standards as they stand right now will not make a lot of sense unless you kind of know where they came from. So that's kind of why they're in there. They're going to change. Yes, I know they're going to change. And it's hard to write program goals knowing that they're going to change. So Tara and I are kind of caught in a great big influx right now, knowing that they're going to change and knowing that our program goals are going to do some drastic changes in the 6 weeks from the time we get them till time to start teaching in January, because everything we do is based on those teaching standards, just like it is for you guys. So, okay, so AASL. Those are probably going to make the most sense to you. The ISTE ones, when you look at the ISTE standards, you need to go in and look at the student ones. You may have to scroll down the page. The link takes you to the home page, and then you'll have to scroll down and look at the standards for students. You can look at the other ones. They're interesting, like the ones for the educators. They're not the ones we're focusing on in this class. It's just the student ones that we'll focus on in this class. So, and then of course our state standards, like I said earlier, AASL and ISTE kind of feed into that. If you've never looked at the state standards from the perspective of a school librarian, it's going to be very interesting because you're used to going to either if it's secondary, you're used to going into social studies, English, or whatever, and looking at whatever grades you're teaching. And the same thing for the elementary grades, you're used to going to, say, first grade, looking at what do I have to do in social studies, what do I have to do in science, what am I doing in math, what am I doing in English or language arts. For librarians, we look at all of that. And before some of the major changes, a lot of school librarians can start telling you, like literally quoting you chapter and verse out of the state standards. You will know the state standards. If you're elementary, you will know them from pre-K through 5th or 6th grade, whatever you have in your building. And then secondary, you're going to know from 6th grade all the way up, depending on where you end up teaching. It's just one of those things that after a while, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I now know what to do. In the beginning, it's a real big time sucker though. I mean, it takes a while to get used to, and that's kind of why we start in the first class. I want you to start getting used to just looking at them from a different perspective and kind of ways that, especially for elementary, if you haven't taught some of the beginning grades like pre-K or kindergarten, how our collaboration with them looks dramatically different than what it does maybe for 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, who kind of focus more on the what I'll call hardcore research skills, because that's what's tested. But there are still things that you can do with the babies as far as collaboration and kind of helping to meet your standards and helping meet their standards. And honestly, if you kind of set them up when they're early to kind of go down that path and work with you, it makes things 1,000 times easier when they get a little older and maybe don't have the best attitude towards school in general. So. Okay, so that's kind of it, I think, for right now. We don't have any big projects due until we get closer to the end of the semester, like in December. Your field experience journals, if you haven't started your field experience, please get started. Some people always think, oh, it won't take that long, and it always takes way longer than what people think it's going to take. Either the librarian that you're going to observe, something happens, they get sick, they have a kid get sick, their principal surprises them with a meeting, so they have to shut the library down. Any number of things could happen. Being the librarian, I've had many people, say, hey, can I come observe? Sure, we'll schedule it 2-3 weeks out. I'm thinking everything's good. Literally that morning, my principal will show up in the library and say, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you about XYZ. Okay. So then I've got to turn around and tell all those teachers we had plans with, sorry, not happening today. And that's a whole other story for another time about things that you can do when that happens. And then of course I have to contact the person that the student who's coming to observe, because there's not going to be anything there for them to observe really. So those are great days to get other things done, but that's also a conversation for at another point in time. Okay, so that's your field experience and your Big 6 lesson plan. That's one of the things that we're going to talk in great detail about. For those who had me for library information retrieval, you're probably going to be tired of that conversation, because we're going to start it in library information retrieval and then roll it into foundations. If you've never done a Big 6 lesson plan, there are a lot of pieces to it. There's a lot of scaffolding that has to go into it for you to understand how each of those pieces work. I will tell you that for our students who graduated in the spring, for those who understood Big 6 and Gagne, we will talk more about Gagne and kind of how he fits into the whole Big 6 concept, they had no trouble passing one of the essays or the constructed responses on the OSAT, because they had a way to kind of unpack what they were reading. They kind of knew what to do with it at that point, and they wrote it. We get a copy of the scores. We get to see kind of like which questions did you do well on, which questions did you not do so well on, what do I need to modify. But for those who understand Big Six and understand Gagne, we can see a significant difference in their scores. So that's kind of why Tara and I have kind of started hitting this hard and heavy, because honestly, our constructed responses are probably the lowest part of the scores overall. So that's why we've kind of started focusing on that. You get to the point of going, I don't want to write anymore. Well, there's a reason why we're having you do this, is to help you pass the OSAT. As much as I'm not a fan of teaching to the test, there comes a point where I want you to be successful after you spend all this time in graduate school and you take that test. Because the test itself, as you know, is not cheap. So I want you to pass it the first time. So that is one of our goals. Let's see, I think that is all for now. I hope everybody has a great week, and I am looking forward to seeing you next week. If you have any questions, let me know.